So it's really, truly, I don't know.
So you met
So
Shawnee after during the
so
World War II.
After a while, uh, I was working with the Red Cross, and they had skits and everything for soldiers. I always played.
You were playing in the skits and all.
In those skits and theaters, and then in the meantime we were bandaging. I never forget, I don't know where it was, but I think it was Budapest at beginning. My father sent me there to learn. Big, at least 100 girls and everything, and they were teaching us how to bandage.
So you
and
worked
how
in
to do
hospitals.
bandaging without tapes and everything, because then you cut the thing in half, you tie it, and then you pull it out, and you tie it up. It came out of my head. I went to my father's hospital one day, where he's making it. You know what? He says, put the ladies in the right. 5 ladies who had all boils on their breasts.
Oh, gosh.
Is that going? Oh my God. 5 ladies, boils in their breasts. Now he put them out. There were 2 ladies who helped her, nurses. He cut, the next one came to clean. He cut all of them. And one was giving him the life. One was giving him the life. And then the next one came and put the cleaning, done the cleaning, the nurses, and they had all those little things in their hand. And the next one, he was looking again back, if it's okay, okay, the next one. I mean, like a factory. You have no idea.
During the war.
That was already, yeah.
Because
they
didn't have a lot of doctors.
They didn't have enough doctors, and they didn't have enough material either, because the Germans were in town too. They took everything. And those son of a bun, they never gave us any. They had already the sulfur drugs. They didn't have anything else, but they had sulfur. And they could have, and we didn't even have that. We were begging for some. Begging them. They had to have it, because they had their own, but they didn't give us anything. All you had is ricinus oil. That's what's that oil you drink for running? Castor oil. And aspirin. And what else did you have? Morphine, opium. You had plenty of opium. When we were down in the country, my father went out sometimes into the fields, because some women were they were lazy, or they just couldn't come back to have their babies, so they had their babies out in the fields. So he tried to do that thing. And you know what they gave the babies? They had a little white kerchief. They put a little poppy seed, raw poppy seed in there, sugar, because it's bitter, tie it up, make a little thing, and they put it in the baby's mouth, and the baby was sucking on poppy.
What was that for? Just to stop them
They
from
put
crying?
them in sleep.
To put them to sleep.
Put them in sleep.
To put them to sleep. So you worked, what did you do? You entertained the soldiers too?
We entertained.
Yeah.
We tried to.
And then what was your mother doing at this time?
My mother was at my uncle's house.
So you were living on your own?
I lived on my
in an
own.
apartment in Budapest during the war?
In our apartment, yeah, for a while.
She
Then
left
my
for-
uncle came, and he says we have to leave because the Russians are coming.
Now your father was dead.
That my father was dead.
get
It
that
was
clear.
43, 44. My uncle came, and he says, "Let's get out of here." So my mother went with him, but I went with another group to with the Red Cross.
To the Red Cross.
Red
you
Cross.
stayed with the Red Cross.
So I was.
How old were you then? Do you know?
20s.
In your early 20s. So you hadn't really settled down yet.
No, no.
You
no
were still
way.
a party girl when the war
Oh,
hit, huh?
very much,
Very much.
very much. So I went then with them
To
I
the
had a
Red Cross.
very few clothes. So I went to Red Cross, and I was down there, and I remember the gendarme was looking for me. People were telling a gendarme because my uncle was the head. He was the Attorney General, God knows whoever he was, a big.
Which uncle by what? Your mother's?
Lotzibachi.
Your mother's?
Martha's, my mother's brother. And he took my mother with them, and his wife, and Martha.
So why were they looking for you?
Because he thought I am still in Budapest, and he wanted me out of there because the Russians were coming.
The Russians were coming, but
You
he
know,
didn't realize.
all the Germans were coming too. At first the Germans, when the Germans coming. And I thought I'd go down to Putinini in town and see my grandmother yet. And that's what I wanted to do. And he knew, but then someone else came and we went to West Hungary. So I was around there, and the gendarme come for me to come up right away to the Ferenci town in there. So
they were trying to get you to safety.
They wanted to get me to safety.
They wanted you to be safe. And so you
So
were still with the Red Cross.
I went, and in 10 days, there was the Lotzibachi. He wanted to go back to Budapest because lots of his men was still there, you know. So he couldn't go in anymore. Budapest had a ring around in there with Russians. So then they decided, you know, that let's go to Germany. And all the men and everything. And then one day, Gyarfas came.
So you never had known him before?
I never had known him. My uncle said, well, listen, I have a young captain in there. I have a young captain in there, and another two. You better settle down. I had enough of you coming and going.
So it sounds so confusing at that time. Was
Right.
that like over a year or months after
That
all
was
this happened, or
90
what?
That was over 2 years.
Over 2 years. So y'all kind of just roamed around for 2 years?
Yeah.
Or really? Just roamed around during the
Yeah.
war? They were bombing and they
Bombing
burned
and everything, and burning
taking
and
the
helping,
Jews.
and Red Cross, with the Red Cross I have been for.
So you just kind of had
After
your bags packed
in
up?
1943, when,
That's
we
the
had
part I
a
get
car
so
to
confused.
backpack, and not a backpack, but I had a nice big
So
luggage.
your main place was Budapest at your apartment, but y'all would just come and go in?
I come in and going at first, but then I couldn't go because there was no vehicles anymore.
No
you
one?
No place, no
No safety?
vehicles.
Oh, no vehicles. So for a couple of years, things were kind of chaotic.
Very
Just-
chaotic.
Just
Very
kinda
chaotic.
short supplies.
I stayed in
and-
short supplies, everything.
And then in the meantime,
We
your
ate
father
it.
died at this time
And
too.
after he died, that was worse than ever.
After the death.
After
it's like
the
from
death,
43 on.
That's 43 on was bad because the Germans came into town. There was full of soldiers. Then I went to work with the Red Cross, and they have been very under staffed, you know, and most of those girls didn't know what to do. I knew more because of my father,
Right.
you know, and I have seen some of them, and they came from very good families because it was kind of a stylish to go and work for
The Red Cross. It's
Cross,
like
you
the
know.
right thing to do.
Yeah, that was the right thing to do, but most of those girls had no idea how bad it was. And then came a lots of people with half arms or this or
From
that.
the war.
And we were, really some nights we were crying.
I know. Do you remember being afraid? I mean, that must
I
have been a
am not
terrifying
afraid,
thing.
but I never forgot. We had this young man coming, and he had a wound on his arm, you know. So this little girl, well, we were all between 18 and 25, say, and she bandaged it and everything, and I found a very nice, sympathetic German captain, and was asking for uh, uh, antibiotics.
Mhm.
They were the only one had antibiotics. And he says, you can ask me anything on this whole earth, but that I cannot get you.
They didn't have any.
They had.
They just weren't.
No, we knew they had.
Mm.
Well, they discovered it, and they were making it and everything. They just didn't give anybody anything because they had themselves also. I didn't realize how much more people, Germans, were wounded than anybody else.
So you remember it was a lot of Germans that you were taking care of?
No, we
No,
didn't. They
just-
had their own.
Oh.
They had their own, and they had pretty well organized. Even there, it was organized.
So you were fighting for
It's-
the
I just
Hungarians?
wanted to, and there was this little girl, Hungarian, in our, it was a school where there were everything taken apart and taken away, and we had straw bags,
That's what they were sleeping on,
stray bags,
for the patients.
well, on the floor.
Mhm.
And if we were rich, we had two, bunk beds. But we didn't have bunk beds everywhere. And everything was, well, bugs we didn't have because it was winter, and you don't have bugs where there are so hard winters, But lice always was. It was our life. And then I come back and the guy died on us. Nobody came to see. We wanted the doctor to say, yes, but he got infected. That's small wounds. 21-year-old kid.
Died.
The other 18, little wounds, nothing. But
So-
if you have something to clean it with other than booze or alcohol, nothing else.
And so
And we were not so. Then we sat down and cried, and we decided that we get the hell out of here because we won't be able to stand it. Where is her parents? Where are my parents?
y'all were
And
alone.
we didn't know.
Y'all didn't know.
So she didn't know where hers were. So we stayed a couple of days. Then they were calling Viola. Fulop Viola. Mondom, itt vagyok. Here I am. And that, well, the gendarme is here for you. God, what did I do?
No, this was the Hungarian one.
So that was the Hungarian.
So you were glad.
A gendarme was like a state police in
Yeah.
here, something.
Sometimes they have a bad
know,
reputation
it's-
too, huh?
They do have, because they
Uh-huh.
are strict. They are taking care of the whole country
Mhm.
except cities.
Mhm.
The cities have their
Oh,
police,
yeah, right.
but the gendarme is outside of
So
that.
why did they come to get you? Your family.
Well, my uncle was
was
looking
worried,
for me,
right.
and they were worried, and they wanted me with them.
So the
then,
gendarme came.
so I took the girl with me,
Oh,
and we went.
uh-huh.
And my uncle found, I think, her father or brother or someone. Anyway,
Mhm.
she went. She went to Austria.
Mhm.
She went to Vienna,
And then where did you go?
and I went to North Hungary with my family. There was my mother.
Yeah. So you
And
were
the last
safe
minute, when the Russians broke through Budapest,
Mhm.
then we got a whole bunch of people, about 1,500 people, into train wagons.
Okay. Now, what year was this about?
45.
45. Now, is this when you met Sean?
45, 44, and for 44, that's when I met Shani.
He was in the gendarme.
He was in the gendarme, and he was called back from his job,
Mhm.
and then my uncle had this dinner, and he says, now you sit beside this, I want you to talk to those guys. I don't want you to run around and the world all over, and I want you to settle down.
Your uncle was telling you this.
He was the word, you or else.
Mhm.
I don't know what else he
Mhm.
would have done. But so at that night I was sitting next to Gyarfas, that poor other guy was in the same rank, Dr. Who and who. I didn't talk to him one word. He didn't talk to me. We talked and talked and talked.
So this is the first time you met
That
him?
was the first time we
Y'all was
met.
sitting together at dinner because your uncle made you.
Yeah, because my uncle made you. And then the next time, maybe his wife was asking me, Martha's mother, which one you like? I says, where do you meet one? I sat next to Gyarfas. She said, the other one, Imre Géza, was there too. I said, I didn't even see him.
You just saw Gyarfas, huh?
It was Gyarfas. Then next day, Gyarfas walked me home because I lived in another little town. And that was 5 miles, 10 kilometers. And he walked me home. And the next day, I got the word that we have to leave because the Russians broke through and they're coming.
They're coming. We'll stop right here for now.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's where we came. The next day, he came over on horseback and we went horseback riding. He got himself, for myself, a horse too. And we got off at the bridge, I remember that, and looked in that little swift water, and he started to recite a poem. That was my, territory, literature,
Right, because you had
poetry,
studied it. That's so
and
romantic.
everything. And he started, and I went away, and I was laughing and was telling, and he says, how do you know? I says, that's what I do, And I had the academy, and I am playing too, and was learning. Then he started to recite. He says he loves that stuff. And do you know this, or do you know that? And different writers and different letters. And I started to say, oh, Romeo, Romeo, why art thou, you Romeo? All kinds of things. From Shakespeare on to Moliere. And oh, he knew absolutely fantastic amount of literature, word by word,
That's pretty good.
So he had a fantastic memory of those things.
So that interests you right
So
away.
this way, we had a million things to do, so it was almost dark when we got home. And he had to go home yet, So he took me. And then the next day, my uncle sent note to come over again because they have somewhere to go. And we were all together, and they decided that that's going to be Gyarfas, and I had to somehow, make dates with Gyarfas, and Gyarfas is going to be the one. Well,
So they approved of it.
they approved. Oh, definitely.
Oh,
Everybody was kind of sorry for him.
Why? Because of you. That's so funny.
Oh, Gyarfas.
Oh, God. That's hysterical.
So,
oh, and how
a
much
week
older was
later-
he? He was older than you.
he was 10 years old.
10 years.
A week later, we had to move. My uncle sent over a carriage, and with the word to put everything on, whatever we had, and move.
So a
all
week afterwards is when y'all
a
left?
week after that. And then we put all, we had a big wooden crate of linen and things and that, what my mother brought from Budapest, and clothes and things and I don't know, curtains and rugs, and we packed everything on there and went back to where my uncle was. And there was already lines and lines of people, like
leaving.
hundreds of people with their things and boxes and stuff to go, and they were west,
All right.
go west.
You left everything in your apartment.
So whatever, furniture and stuff. Oh,
Everything.
yeah.
Everything was gone.
Wall pictures and
What did you take? What did you take?
Clothes, some clothes, a couple of shoes, boots. I had riding boots on and boots and pants, and I had a wild cat coat, and I had another coat on because it was cold. I had another coat on. I had a black a knit coat, but it was that furry Angora.
Oh, Angora.
I have a whole big Angora coat, and that I had blouse, sweaters, and that's my mother the same, whatever she had. And off we went. On the top of we went to my as far as my uncle's, and there came my uncle and his family was already. Bobsy and Marta was already off with a car, and Gyarfas came with the second column of people, and I got into his car, and our baggages came with horse-drawn carriages. There was no more cars. There was no gasoline, you know. So off we went on the highway towards Vienna. And in Vienna we met lots of other Hungarians. We even went up to some big mountains in there. I don't even remember. And stayed in there a couple of days. And we heard news that Budapest was taken by the Russians. And lots of German people. The Germans were really defending the country, and everybody, there were lots of Hungarians. They didn't want the Germans very much, and they were sensible they did not want to bust up the bridges. There are 5 huge bridges goes from Buda, between Buda and Paris. So, but the Germans started to blow up the Margaret Island Bridge. That's one of the biggest. I mean, it's terrible waste. You know, we know that people are going to come anyway. Why blow up the bridges? So those bridges were 500 years, 500 years old, things like that. So they started also the new one. And then the Russians were coming, and the Germans were coming.
So then what happened after y'all were up
And
there?
we went to Austria, and the Austrian German, we knew that the Americans, now then we parted. In Austria, the SS soldiers came, and in that column where we went, it grew to about 100, say 1,400 people, 1,400, 500, around that much. There were men and women and old and young and so. The SS soldiers came. This was close by the border, German border. It's still in Austria. And they says all the men has to come with them to clean up the railroad stations. So there was Shani also, and so he came. He says, take as much as you can with you, but don't delay yourself because of earthly goods. Go. You can always get that rag 10 years later, but go, and don't ever go back to Hungary until the communists are taken over, or the Russians are there.
So at that time you knew you couldn't go back?
So that's what he said. So I said, okay, Munich is not that far. We've been close to Oberammergau. There's our regions, you know, people know. And I said, how about we meet somewhere around Munich, because that's how far the Americans were coming, maybe. And we go to the American sections because then we knew that there was an American, a French, an English, and a Russian section.
Mm-hmm.
The Russians were big fans at that time. So we didn't want to get them, we wanted to get the Americans. So he said goodbye, we meet somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Through the Red Cross. I says, I'll be there, and I contact the Red Cross the minute I can, and you contact the Red Cross. And that's how. And then there was those people, the Germans said on the German border, it was the Bavarian border, they said, we don't want any more immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
No more immigrants. You go back home to Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
And there came, some of them, things had American soldiers in the back and there on the other side, and they said they don't let anybody go. The Russians are friends, we can go back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were allies.
Sure, big friends. So we didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So there came a long train,
Mm-hmm.
columns of trains into that station somewhere wherever we were. And I ran to the front where the engineer were,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asking him, we had silk stockings, we
Mhm.
had cigarettes, and I had a couple of bottles of asu, what you call that,
So the
No.
curd?
wine,
Wine. Mm-hmm.
you know, Tokai asu.
Mm-hmm.
It's like good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I give up my Tokai and a couple of packs of cigarettes. We are 4 ladies,
Mhm.
we want to go with you into Germany.
Mm-hmm.
He says there is only one way, go around, go to the very end where the locomotive is,
Mhm.
and go around the other side. I'll let you in one of those
Cars.
cars.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he done.
No, that was an American soldier?
No,
No.
that was the engineer.
Oh, the engineer.
Who was a
helped?
German.
A German.
When we go through to the Americans,
Mhm.
they didn't want us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we were, then he locked us in.
Mm-hmm.
And where are we going to be out or what? He didn't know it either. He says, I says, we go to Munich or so. He says, I have no idea. This guy's across there is going to put me on the line wherever I have to go.
Well, there was other people besides the 4 of y'all on that train?
Nobody,
Nobody?
just 4
Just
of
the
us.
4 of us. Mm-hmm.
And those trains were empty.
And your mother was one of them?
My mother was, I was, and 2 other girls, Shani's friends,
Uh-huh.
wives. One was pregnant.
Mm. And did you know that you weren't going to go back ever, or you just didn't think
We
that
didn't
way?
know
Y'all didn't
what we
know
are going
nothing.
to do tomorrow,
That's something.
if we are going to live or not or what.
Mm-hmm.
So far it was good. We didn't know because see what happens is in the meantime the
Mhm.
Americans were bombing the territories.
Mm-hmm.
See, it
Mhm.
was still 1945 spring,
It wasn't
and the
over.
Americans were bombing halfway to Italy and go down in there, and then came up through Austria and Hungary and all those territories. Whatever bombs they had, they just dropped.
Uh-huh.
Who cares where?
Yeah,
So that was
still happening.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know where the bomb is going to find us or not or
Mhm.
what. It was a moving target, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they did like moving targets, trains or
trains,
something,
right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't see too much because the doors were closed. So we
Mhm.
lay down and we were sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And then all at once, we saw that it doesn't move anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't hear anything. That was